Chair Healy, let's go. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March 13th session of the Motor Vehicles and Transportation Subcommittee. Glad to see you all. We are going to start.
I had a wrong link again.
Oh dear. Glad you're here. We are going to start off with HB 1070, the Maryland Toll Rate Reform Act of 2024. We have the chair here to lead us off on this bill. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for letting me crash. As many of you know, I serve on what we've been calling the Train Commission, which is this kind of blue ribbon commission, as Delegate Jacobs likes to say, focused on our transportation funding and investment needs. Two of the recommendations I think you'll be taking up today from that commission are on tolls and EV surcharges. This first piece of legislation is on tolls, HB 1070. As I think I promised during the hearing, we've been working with the Maryland Transportation Authority, as well as the second floor and the Department of Transportation about how to amend this bill to make it work better for everybody. And I think the compromise before you does that. It will essentially provide for 10 years a $75 million payment from the Maryland Transportation Authority to the trust fund. The structure of $75 million for 10 years is because it essentially functions as a repayment for the contributions the state made to one of the toll authority's facilities, the Intercounty Connector, mostly in my county. So that is what the bill does. As I've explained before, the tolls on the toll facilities will have to rise no matter what we do, right? So they are going to go up. I think they're currently saying in 2028, although I appreciate the executive director of the Transportation Authority is here to speak for himself. And so the question is, can we leverage this moment when they're going to do increases for their own maintenance and debt service to help our broader transportation problem? And the Transportation Authority did some analysis that showed that, you know, obviously numbers move around, but you would need sort of increases in the order for Maryland EV Pass drivers of $2.25 to $3 in tolls to support both their needs for maintenance and debt service, as well as this sort of repayment, $75 million a year for 10 years. So this is an important component of our ability to fulfill some of our transportation obligations. I'm sure there are questions, and you know, Patrick, I think, hopefully sent around the reprint of the bill with all the amendments. The other thing I just want to add is, you know, the amendments make this much less prescriptive. We're not really telling them how to get to the dollar amount repayment. We're, you know, leaving them independent to sort of work that out for themselves, which was an understandable request of the Transportation Authority. So that's another sort of element of the amendment. So Patrick and Bruce and Eric Lutke can, you know, correct all the stuff I got wrong there, Madam Chair.
I'm sure you got absolutely nothing wrong, Mr. Chair. Patrick or Bruce or Eric, would any of you like to chime in at this moment?
If I could, Madam Chair.
Please do.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to Chair Corman for his work on the Train Commission, his work for many years on transportation funding. I'm just here to add that the administration fully supports this bill as amended. We believe it's a reasonable approach to ask essentially for a repayment of the Garvey bond funding that MDOT gave to MDTA some close to 2 decades ago now to build the Intercounty Connector. So we would respectfully ask for a favorable report from the subcommittee on this bill.
Thank you. Bruce, did you want to add anything?
I'll just say that the chairman was correct in saying 2028. We refer to it sometimes as FY 2029, which starts in 2028. So we can pick whichever year as long as we have. That's what our current forecast shows as a need for a toll increase.
You all have access to the document. We shared it earlier. Does anybody have any questions about the amendments?
Move the amendments.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second. So the amendments have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about the amendments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the amendments, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Anybody opposed? Okay, the amendments pass. On the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Second.
Great, the bill has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of HB 1070 as amended, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Jay.
Okay, bill as amended passes. Thank you all very much.
Madam Chair, just want to make sure you also saw Delegate Ziegler as opposed.
Got it. Thank you. I hadn't caught that. I appreciate that. Okay, we are now moving to HB 744, zero emission vehicles. You all also have access to that. Mr. Chair, you want to lead us off?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thanks to Eric and Bruce for joining for that previous bill. Of course, they're welcome to hang around if they want, but I think that concludes the MDTA portion of the afternoon. This piece of legislation will also be responsive to a train commission recommendation. As I said, that is to add a surcharge on zero emission vehicles. Zero emission vehicles, as you are well aware, do not pay motor fuel tax, which is a big component of our transportation budget. And so this is a way for them to chip in a little bit. It's not going to be a full motor fuel tax replacement. The average Maryland driver pays about $250 a year in motor fuel taxes. The proposal before you is $125 a year for zero emission vehicles. I believe $100 for a plug-in hybrid and $75 for a full hybrid, if I remember my numbers correctly. That puts us around the average for states. There's a pretty broad range, but it puts us at a higher annual payment than many states that I would consider peers in terms of their support for zero emission vehicle policy. So while I know it's not enough for some of you, it's more than they charge in California, Hawaii, Illinois, Oregon, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And I'll also note that most of the Northeast at this point doesn't actually apply one of these fees to zero emission vehicles. So while I'm sure there's arguments to go higher, there are also arguments to go lower. This seems like a good middle ground to be at the average and get the support we need, or some of the support we need, for our Transportation Trust Fund. This is amending Delegate Hornberger's bill, which came in a slightly different form, but was a similar kind of additional charge for zero emission vehicles. He is comfortable with us amending his bill. He did not specify to me the levels. So I don't want to say that he's comfortable with the levels, but he was comfortable with us using his bill in this fashion. The other thing we do, as you all know, registration is paid biannually. We are authorizing MVA to allow installment payments so that when someone is making these payments, they can do smaller bites over the same period of time instead of having to do the full outlay. And frankly, I hope that's something we extend to registration more broadly, because I think it's good to let people pay a little bit at a time every few months, or even, once a year, than to have the sort of one big payment every other year, which can be challenging for, those among us. So that's the bill with the amendments, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see you, Delegate Morgan. I'll get to you in a second. Question for you, Mr. Chair. So I see on the last page that the proceeds from the surcharge assessed under the section shall be deposited into the Transportation Trust Fund. And I guess I should have asked this on the last one as well. The Transportation Trust Fund, a lot of folks think it's just roads and bridges. Where all will this money go?
Great, thanks for the question. I love to give lectures on the Transportation Trust Fund. I am constantly encouraging Delegate Matt Morgan to ask me questions on the floor about it, so I get the opportunity. Over 50 years ago, when we set up the Consolidated Maryland Department of Transportation and the Transportation Trust Fund, it was set up to be multimodal, which means it included all of the modes in the state. That includes state highway, roads and bridges, yes. It also includes the Maryland Transit Administration. It includes the contribution for the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. It includes the Maryland Aviation Administration, which controls BWI and Martin State Airports. It includes the Maryland Port Administration. It includes the Motor Vehicle Administration. MDTA is a little bit separate from that, the topic of the bill we just spoke about. but it goes into the trust fund, which supports efforts in all of those areas, including the roads and bridges, but also the train lines, the subway and light rail lines, the airport, the port, and even just the MVA operations.
So what we're doing here today isn't going to take away from the port, it's going to help them. Is that right?
This bolsters our overall transportation trust fund, which includes the port as well as the airport.
Got it. Thank you so much. Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair. If this is the case, could you please tell me in your vision of the future, where does the Fraser Hidalgo bill go?
I view this, thank you for the question, Delegate Morgan. I view this as our action instead of taking up Delegate Fraser Hidalgo's bill. This is the bill we're moving on sort of the EV surcharges for registration. I know that was a component of his bill as well. This is the vehicle, forgive the term, for putting on an EV surcharge. So I don't think the Fraser Hidalgo bill, absent some strange situation would be moving if we do this. We're certainly not going to do a double EV surcharge. So.
Just want to ask the question. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to weigh in with my support for this bill. As I mentioned last week, I think this is a smart way to try to bolster the Transportation Trust Fund. I think that these levels are calibrated well in a way that won't harm our broader goals about EV adoption, and yet at the same time will help us plug a little bit of that hole in the TTF. And I say this despite the fact that I'll be taxing my own household, I think $225 under the bill, but I'm happy to pay my fair share. And I would also note that those of you who may think this is not high enough, we still are considering the bill to tie the vehicle registration fees to weight. And as everyone knows, EVs are heavier. So I think that we have to consider that we're not just necessarily passing this bill in a vacuum, and that we also have that bill as well. So with that, I also note on the previous bill, my district very much thanks MDOT for the ICC loan, and I think repaying it was prudent, but we already passed that one. This one is also good, and I will be voting green.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. Delegate Jacobs.
All right, I got a question for the chairman. We previously discussed that I guess it's $125 a year for the full EV, and they can make partial payments. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, the bill's going to authorize before you as amended MVA to allow installment payments over the course of the year, and really, Delegate Jacobs, over the course of 2 years, because this is a registration surcharge. Registration is normally done biennially in Maryland.
Right. So
Yeah.
I understand it's 2 years, but I'm just trying to understand it. But if it's not EV, you don't have the option of making payments.
Currently, but as I said, my hope is that we actually extend that to general registration as well. I think it would be a good policy. Kind of, frankly, Delegate Jacobs, setting aside any kind of increases in this area, I think that would be a better policy and easier for a lot of Marylanders. So as I think Delegate Stewart said, we have another piece of legislation from Delegate Robin Lewis on registration. That might be a vehicle for that kind of a change.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Ziegler. I see you, Chair Healy. I'll get to you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm always really happy when I hear about money going to the Port of Baltimore, because it's extremely important to agriculture, which many of my constituents are involved in. Can you say something about Port of Baltimore funding? How much of it comes from the Transportation Fund? And what kind of a boost would this be, just in broad terms?
Sure. So the way our TTF is structured, all of the revenue raised at any of our modes goes into the trust fund, right? So when someone pays a fare on the Maryland Transit Administration, which they do pay, Delegate Morgan, Delegate Jacobs, people do pay fares to ride the transit. When someone, when an airplane pays a landing fee at BWI, when there's a container fee or whatever, a transfer fee at the port, whatever it is, all that money goes into the trust fund. A lot of it then goes back out into those modes, but it all goes into the trust fund. That has a lot of advantages for the state. It allows us to, frankly, bond more because there's a higher revenue base we're bonding off of. So all the money actually really goes into the trust fund and then back out into the different modes. That's different than a lot of other states. A lot of other states have sort of separate accounts for things like that. We do it all on a consolidated basis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Healy.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I support this proposal. I do think that it would be a very good idea for the installment plan, because when years ago when we made this every 2 years, we were in a different financial bind, and we only needed to fix 1 year. So we consolidated, got a whole bunch of money the first year, and then it was like every 2 years. And it continued on like that. I think, Mr. Chair, you would be interested to know that that was the brainchild of former delegate Gene Cunahan from Montgomery County, who was vice chair of Ways and Means at the time. So I'm glad to see us moving in that direction. I think that if we're going to increase the cost, having people be able to pay it off, especially people who are used to paying at the gas tank where they don't even notice it that much. They notice it when they fill up, but this is a big chunk at one time. And I think it would be helpful if they could break it up as they need to. I think it's wonderful if it'd be an option for everybody.
Thank you, Chair Healy. Any other comments or questions? I will just add, as I did the other day, as the owner of both an EV and a hybrid, I think I should pay my fair share, because I think that's the right thing to do. So I am in support of this bill as well. And with that, does anybody have any further questions on the amendments?
I'd like to move the amendments.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of, I'm sorry, any further discussion on the amendments? Okay, all those in favor of the amendments, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the amendments pass. On the bill as amended.
Move the bill.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Great. Anybody opposed? Okay, the bill is amended, pass. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are welcome to stay if you want, but we're gonna dive into
I will be listening to you later at double speed. Thank you all.
I'm sure you will.
Appreciate it.
What
Bye.
happens if I talk really fast? And then
That's
you
all
listen
right.
to us at
I have
double
to
speed.
slow it down. Thank you all.
All right, thanks. Okay, folks, we will move to HB 972, motor vehicles off highway vehicles. You have some revisions. We had some conversations with MDOT yesterday and added a couple more amendments. So Patrick, would you like to walk us through the bill as amended, please?
Well, I can walk you through. Well, we came up with 3 things that we were going to look at, potentially amending. One was talking about enforcement, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that we don't need any language for that. I mean, the stores that are selling things they shouldn't sell, or curbs owners even, they are governed by somebody. I'm trying to find that. They are addressed by either the AGs, county attorneys, whatever.
Patrick, I'm sorry. Can we take a step back and walk the committee through the bill as amended, and then we can talk about the MDOT conversations?
Okay, well, the bill as amended, this is Delegate Boyce's, Vice Chair Boyce's motorbike bill. One thing we do is we consolidate the definition. Most of these vehicles are referred to as off-highway recreational vehicles now, instead of the confusing melange of defined terms that we had previously. The bill requires that anybody that sells off-highway recreational vehicles either provide titling services at the dealership or at the location, or have a continuing contract with an entity that provides titling. We want titling is basically what it comes down to, titling with the state. The bill also a lot of the bill's clarifying, to be honest. It authorizes local jurisdictions, and here's where we get some amendments, but I'll start with the bill. Authorizes local jurisdictions to enforce the Maryland vehicle law in their jurisdictions for violations involving off-highway recreational vehicles, and enact and implement local legislation governing lawful impoundment of off-highway recreational vehicles and conditions for release for off-highway recreational vehicles that have been impounded. This provision is amended because the language said for vehicles that are suspected of being involved, and that made people nervous. I can understand that. So we say for which a driver is issued a citation for a moving violation of the under the motor vehicle law involving the off-highway recreational vehicle. And then I didn't mention it because it comes out in the amendment that the bill authorizes the local jurisdiction to regulate the operation of off-highway recreational vehicles on highways in its jurisdiction. That was interpreted by some to mean that they could allow them, including allow them on state highways. That was not the intent. That language is taken out by amendment. The bill also, in the bill, repeals the authority of local jurisdictions to register, not register in the motor vehicle sense, but register on a registry of highway registration recreational vehicles. The feeling is that, we've got titling required, no need for registration. Now, we talked about enforcement against the dealers, whether to put in something explicit about the attorney general, state's attorneys, or the like. I don't think that's really necessary. Whoever's enforcing against stores can still do that now. It wouldn't be NVA. They made that clear, and that's understandable because some of these, like the Walmarts, are not dealers. And here we're talking a situation where they were selling them without having titling services. And then there's another suggested amendment that I was not able to put into language, but it was talking about what if an off-highway recreational vehicle was impounded and abandoned at the police department. And we're talking about putting in some language similar to motor vehicles where, they get a certain amount of time to call it, notify the last known address if it was titled, certain provisions if it's not titled. And then after that, the vehicle is forfeited and disposed, at the wishes of the local jurisdiction or police department, as it would be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just to give sort of a high level addition to the details that Patrick just gave us, you all will remember we have dealt with this issue for several years. And what this bill does is instead of registering the vehicle, it's when the motorbike is sold, then that dealer has to title it or have a contract with a titling company that will title that. And so that's a lot of what Patrick was saying about enforcement, whether, if they don't, or if it's a different type of store like a Walmart.
Can't hear you.
That is different than a dealer. So that's some of the details that he was talking about. And then it just talks about local jurisdictions and how they can address this. So that's sort of the big overarching picture. I know that's a lot. Do people have questions? Yes, Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a meeting with that B360 group that came to talk to us in full committee. And I ended up very confused. Their big thing that they care about is being able to register bikes in Baltimore City. And I feel like I just don't understand why we need to take that away or why they need it. I don't understand either side of that.
Patrick, do you want to answer that?
I would if I could. I have secondhand knowledge of this in the sense that I've been told that B360 might want registration, and perhaps Delegate Addison can help there because they come out of Baltimore. But that they want registration in the sense of being able to ride them on the streets. And that's not going to happen, I don't think. Now, in terms of just registration so that the county knows who owns it, who has it, who's authorized, to be on areas where these bikes are allowed to be. If they want to get a handle on it in that way, the current law allows that. I don't know if that's why B360 wants registration. They did testify to that effect, but they didn't really give a reason.
Delegate Addison.
So B360 is totally different from the dirt bike riders that ride their bikes on the street. So they are a STEM program that's located in my district, and we have a huge field where they ride. And so they not only do they ride, they teach the young folks how to maintenance the bikes. And so what their concern was is that, and the mayor supports them as well. What their concern is, they have some language in here that says suspicion. That's the
We took that out.
y'all took that out.
Yep, that has been changed. We took their language.
You took.
Yep.
Oh, you took.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes, we changed
Oh,
that.
okay. So yes, because they are, they have a really nice program. It is a really nice program, and we want them to be like in our district. And to me, honestly, I know that the dirt bikes are a problem to some, but in the city, but they aren't like. Some folks will look at the dirt bikes in Baltimore City and say, oh, they're related to crime. And we have never had anyone that say these guys that ride these dirt bikes are related to or connected to any crime. To me, they're like a family. They just come out and they ride. And I'm being honest, they ride their bikes, and you never hear of anybody saying they got shot up. So that was kind of like what B360, they did not want to be associated in that way. And so they wanted that language to be taken out. And so if that language is taken out, I'm good with it. Other than that, I was going to say.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. So we,
welcome.
just to reiterate, we changed the language that said somebody that is, quote, that is suspected of to, Patrick, what is the exact language?
The lawful impoundment of an off-highway recreational vehicle for which the driver is issued a citation for a moving violation under the Maryland vehicle law involving the off-highway recreational vehicle.
Okay, so what it says is instead of somebody who's suspected, they already have been issued a citation. And that,
Right.
I guess, is not their exact language. I stand corrected on that. It's our statutory language that says, you have to have been issued a citation as opposed to being suspected of.
Okay, so with their, so is this the language that B360 asks to put it or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is our legal language that is exactly what they wanted.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Delegate Davis.
I'm not so sure what the difference is between suspected. Maybe if you could finish the sentence. I'm not so sure what the difference in having been issued a citation. That's not a finding of guilt. So I'm still.
Right. Patrick, do you have the language?
Well, I don't think B360 gave us any language.
But there's some other folks that did. Let me find.
Well, to go to Delegate Davis's point,
Yes.
the concern was that suppose you had an untitled vehicle or someone suspected their neighbor of having an untitled vehicle. That suspicion under the previous language could be the impetus for an impoundment, and that's not where we're going.
I get it. Thank you. My second question is forfeiture. Can you tell me how forfeiture plays into this again?
Well, forfeiture is not here, not in the bill. But I was talking about earlier was not forfeiture, but in abandoned vehicles. If a police department impounds it and there's no title, so they don't know who owns it, or if nobody claims it, or if there's a title and they try to contact the owner and never claims it. What do they? The question is, what do they do with that? It's still titled in someone else's name. And I'm not really sure, because to be honest, you know, in police situations, they would sell a motor vehicle and take the cash. But in this case, I don't think they would really want these to go back out on the street. So I'm really not sure what to do with the disposal aspect of that.
So your reference is to untitled vehicles?
Either untitled or unclaimed.
So Patrick, we had talked yesterday with MDOT about them relinquishing it to the locals.
Well, yeah, MDOT wouldn't be involved in that other than providing the
Right.
title information.
Right.
But they would have a whole bunch of titles and nobody would, the person who has title to it is not claiming it, or there is no title.
And Patrick, are we setting any parameters around the time limit for that?
Yes. That would be similar to motor vehicles.
Okay. And lastly, you mentioned registration. Are we going to issue license plates or registration numbers?
What we're doing is, current law allows local jurisdictions, and to my knowledge, only Baltimore County does it, to register these vehicles. Not registration as in vehicle registration, but registration as entering them on a registry. You know, so they can, you know, get a control, you know who's where, or what's out there, that type of thing. And the bill repeals that.
And replaces it with titling.
Okay, so titling. Titling would include a tag?
A sticker, yes.
A sticker. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think it would be fair to say that we're clarifying that titling is required. That is current law, and stickers are current. But we got to be honest, not all of them are titled. And not a lot of the people who sell these have the ability to title. That's where the loophole is. That's what we're trying to close.
Thank you.
We realize this may be step one. There may be some things that we need to do in years down the road. Delegate Addison, your hand is, oh, you just put it down. Okay, Delegate Healy?
Yeah, I just said, do these vehicles have, or whatever they're called, have a VIN number or something that identifies them? Or how do they get described on a sticker or on a titling?
Probably have a VIN number, I would assume. I don't know that for fact. And then they probably tie, if they have it, they've got to have some sort of identification number that they would then tie the number on the decal to that number.
Okay.
We could run it by MVA and double check.
Yeah, I just curious. I don't think I've ever actually seen one of these vehicles up very close. So yeah.
It sounds very similar to what I had to do when I was riding my bike. The village that I lived in, you had to, you know, bring your bike in and they gave you a decal and you knew, you know, it had a number on it. And so.
No, that would be what was registered, the number on the decal.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Great.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's kind of the problem we're trying to address here, is that Maryland has jurisdictions that require bike registration, including Montgomery County, I believe. And how many people know that? And how many people do it?
And Rock Hall does too.
Who does?
Rock Hall, the holder of Jay Jacobs' bike.
I'll have you know, I have a Town of Rock Hall bicycle sticker on my bicycle.
They haven't taken it from you yet?
Not that.
Any other questions on this bill? Patrick, are we in a place where we can move the amendments in concept, or would you like to hold this until tomorrow? Because sorry, folks, we will be meeting tomorrow.
We have to meet tomorrow, probably have to meet Friday.
Probably.
We can do either. We just moved some concept amendments in natural resources. They were a little bit simpler. If we wait till tomorrow, I could probably have something drafted up and y'all can play with it, change it, whatever.
What is the will of the committee? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's plenty of time at this point. I mean, we were at March 2nd on the floor today, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Delegate Addison.
Yeah, and I was just raising my hand to say if we could hold it. So
Sure.
when you,
Absolutely, we can do that. Okay, we will get the reprint and get that to you, and we will put it on the list for tomorrow. By the way, I need to do a very public shout out and thank you to Patrick, who has been working so hard to get us these amendments and reprints, and thank you, Patrick. We really, really appreciate all your hard work.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're gonna hold HB 972. Moving on to HB 665, Montgomery County Local Bill, Speed Monitoring Systems, High Risk Highways. Patrick, will you please tell us what this bill does?
Yes, this is a form of our speed monitoring systems at specific locations, although it doesn't name locations. It talks about authorizes Montgomery County to put them in locations that are identified. Oh, where's that language? Identified in their strategic highway safety plan or Vision Zero plan as roadways or intersections that are high risk for motor vehicle accidents. Maybe we change that word.
It needs to be crashes, yeah.
That result in serious bodily injury or death. And they amend this is, in other words, if it's in their plan, their highway safety plan, that this intersection is seriously dangerous, they can use speed monitoring systems there. And the bill as drafted really does apply to municipalities, but there's certain areas where they left it out. So it cleans that up and clarifies that, yes, it does apply to municipalities in Montgomery too.
Thank you.
So this
Delegate
is,
Jacobs.
in other words, Indian Head Highway for Montgomery County at dangerous intersections.
Thank you. Delegate Jacobs.
All right, my question is, Patrick, I read it, you know, where it talks about putting these cameras in high risk where there are accidents or serious injury or death. Are these moving existing cameras around, or is this additional new cameras?
Could be
new
either.
Cameras. Well, yeah, but I think the anticipation is that it's new cameras. And they may move them from one high risk area to another. If the traffic is calmed down there and people are, you know, it's not sustaining as many crashes, they may move it. But I think the intent is it's going to be, I think, about 5 areas that have been classified as high risk. That's what they're looking.
They said the number in their testimony. I remember around 6 or 7 or something like that.
Okay. Thank you. Delegate Davis.
I am going to vote for this local bill, but I just want to go on the record as saying the evidence has shown from every testimony that we've heard that this does not make our roads safer because we're not out there with a handheld speed gun giving these guys points and taking them off the road. So I just want to go on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Davis. Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank Delegate Davis for her support for this local Montgomery County bill. I also say that at least in Montgomery County, I've seen the data and our traffic cameras have been extremely effective at reducing crashes. But one of the huge gaps and why this bill is really important for us in Montgomery County is that we're not able to put cameras in some of the most dangerous hotspots under current law where we can put cameras. So I think this is a huge, huge bill for us. We appreciate everyone's support. I think the cameras are working, though certainly, Delegate Davis, if you want to work on future legislation to add points to these drivers that get hit with a speed camera, I'm all in.
I want officers to do their job and get out there and take these reckless drivers off the roads.
Thank you, Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this local bill, and I'm looking forward to when we take up the Prince George's bills.
We're working on it, Delegate Healy. We're working on it.
Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, did we have amendments on this?
Just the amendments are clarifying the applicability to municipalities.
Can I make a verbal amendment to change accidents to crashes?
I'll move both amendments.
Thank you. Both amendments have been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on those two amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendments, please say aye or raise your hand. Anybody opposed to the amendments?
Move the bill.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the bill as amended, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. All those opposed? Delegate Jacobs, are you saying you're opposed to another Montgomery County local bill?
No, I did not.
Okay, I was just double checking because
Actually,
I couldn't tell where your
actually-
hand was.
well, I was going like this, and it caught your attention and you thought it was in both camps.
Did?
But
did.
I'm actually supporting this one at this time.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, HB 665 passes. Thank you all very much. We are moving to HB 413, another Montgomery County local bill, publication, speed monitoring systems, publication of notice. Patrick, will you tell us what this bill does, please?
Yeah, just it repeals the requirement that Montgomery County, because speed cameras, you're required to put notice, but required to put notice up on your website. You're supposed to put notice in the local newspaper, and it exempts Montgomery County from that requirement.
Thank you. And just to, sorry, were you going to say more, Patrick?
I was just going to say it's like that's all it does, a one-page bill.
And for those folks who weren't in the Montgomery County discussion, the reason for this is because the newspaper of general circulation in the district becomes the Washington Post, which is very, very expensive. And it's not letting the people know what it was intended to let people know way back when. So that's the point of that here. It's an unnecessary expense to our county and our jurisdictions. So that was the reason behind this language. Yes, Delegate Morgan.
So, as a suggestion, when you at night have sobriety checkpoints, I believe it's required that you notify the public that there's going to be a sobriety checkpoint in an area in the evening or whatever they want to do it. And the way that St. Mary's does it is they put it on Facebook. If you read Facebook, good luck. If you don't, too bad. So I'm thinking in the purposes of what you said, I totally agree about paying the Washington Post the $50,000 to put one ad in. However, if the body felt it best, then maybe the sheriff's office could sit there and say, it's on Facebook. We let you know. You didn't read it. Not my problem.
That's a good point. I mean, we still you have to publish notice of the location of the speed monitoring system on the website. So it is up there.
Okay. So it's on a website somewhere in Montgomery County.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
I apologize.
No, don't apologize at all. That is a good suggestion. Delegate Healy.
Now, I just want to be clear, this doesn't affect the posting of the fact that there's a camera here.
No,
That's
not at all.
going to be there where people will know that they're in an area that's got camera monitoring.
Yes, those signs will still be there.
Okay.
This is just, you don't have to publish it in a newspaper of general circulation, which is the Washington Post.
Well, I have a philosophical issue with newspapers, but I understand what you're saying.
For another day. Okay. Patrick, are there any amendments on this bill?
No.
Move the bill.
Okay. Thank you. Bill has been moved. I believe Delegate Addison just raised her hand to second it. So there's a motion and a second. She's nodding her head. Great. Any further discussion on this bill? Seeing none, all in favor of this local bill,
Are there
HB
amendments?
413?
I'm sorry.
No, there are no amendments.
Okay. Thank you.
HB 413, raise your hand or say yes if you are in
Yes.
support. Anybody opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving to another local bill. This is Prince George's and Montgomery County. This is HB 1023, the Washington Suburban Transit Commission Reform Act. Patrick, take us away. What does this do?
This makes makes changes to the governance of the Washington. I always get this mixed up. Washington Metropolitan, the WMATA, the Washington Suburban Transit Commission, and the Washington WMATA Board of Directors. I'm trying to make sure I get this straight. With respect to the Board of Directors, it says that one member who's appointed by the governor may be reappointed. And that's the member that's supposed to alternate between Montgomery and Prince George's, every new member.
Mhm.
But it says it may be reappointed. So the next time, even if it serves 3 terms, the next one would be from the other county.
Got it. Thank you. And then it
And then it
also
al-
says that when the secretary is not available, then there's someone else who can attend on behalf of the secretary and have the same powers. Is that correct?
Yeah. The current law says that that the proxy, the designee can show the meeting only if a scheduling conflict arises, which I never understood that. That was put in 4 or 5 years ago. And it's taking that out now and saying when the secretary is not available. And I mean, secretary doesn't go to everything he's pointed to, you know that. And says that when attending on behalf of the secretary, have the same powers as the secretary. It's normal for a proxy. And then it also takes away the requirement for contracts and procurement and the like for to be subject to the approval of both the Prince George's and Montgomery County councils, governing bodies, really.
Okay, so who would make the approvals of those?
The
The commission?
commission or the board, not sure exactly which one this is talking about. WMATA would.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yes, Delegate Healing.
I just want to make sure that you have record letters from both delegations on this.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We would not have had the hearing if we didn't.
Okay. I was out sick a couple weeks, so thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Patrick, are there any amendments on this bill?
Nope.
Move the bill.
Okay. Bill's been moved. Is there a second? There's a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of HB 1023, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Awesome. Thank you very much. We are moving to HB 967, the Town of Keedysville. Delegates Weibel and Valentine bring us the Town of Keedysville. Patrick, will you tell us what this does?
Yes. This bill it puts parking restrictions in Keedysville. Person may not park a vehicle on any street or highway, does not apply. And this is, by the way, talking about big vehicles, trucks, semis, big buses. It's not talking about your passenger vehicles or even SUVs. And you can't park on any highway or street in Keedysville. Doesn't apply if it's essential to the immediate use being made of the vehicle, i.e., say, a moving van moving someone into a house.
Or a beer truck. Making a delivery.
There you go. But this is the reason they do this bill, and they're adding themselves to Sharpsburg. We did this for the same sponsors a couple years ago for Sharpsburg, is that they don't have their own police force. And for the sheriff to enforce it, he needs it to be in state law.
Right. Thank you. Anybody have any questions on this bill? Okay, Patrick, are there any amendments?
No amendments.
Move the bill.
Second.
Bill has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of HB 967, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Anybody opposed? Okay, HB 967 passes. We are now going to go to HB 1032, not 23, which is what we did before. 1032, Delegate Solomon. Highways Tourist Area Corridor Signage Program. Patrick, do we have the amendments for this one? Are we good?
We do have the amendments. The main thrust of the amendments, they do a number of little things. They take out the eligibility committee, which was a big deal, I think, for MDOT. And there is going to be, with your permission, we have shared the amendments with State Highway, and they'd like to make a couple of additional tweaks, if you would.
Okay.
And they can explain it.
Matt,
So
do you want to explain well, first of all, just to go back, overview, remember, this was Delegate Solomon's bill for the last couple of years on signage, tourist breweries and other things like that, wanting signs to bring tourism into their business.
And we should note also that the attractions, they're calling them the attractions now that are asking for the signs, are paying the bill now. So there was no fiscal note on this bill.
Right. Thank you so much for adding. That helps tremendously. Yes. Matt, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Before I start, I just want to thank Delegate Solomon for working with SHA on this bill. And the changes here, in addition to the amendments, is a very, very technical thing on, I believe you probably have a PDF of the amendment. So on PDF page 6, so it'd be bill page 5 at the top. If you go down to the language, and it's spread out starting in line 7, and you're looking at subsection I, paragraph 2. You'll see at the very bottom of that, it says the Federal Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So the way it works in Maryland is we will be subject to the Federal Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and then Maryland adopts it as the Maryland Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a technically different document. So I think just by striking federal there, it makes it clear that whichever version is in effect at any one time and is the one that's relevant, that's what would be referred back to. So just a small tweak to correct make the drafting clear.
Great. Does anybody have questions about that or any of the other amendments?
And may I say something, Madam Chair?
Of course.
And get Matt's confirmation. I believe that distilleries and breweries, I could not find, I think they are out of the bill. Is that correct, Matt?
So the standard or the way it's being done now is like it's the same language. What's being defined is what a sign may include. So all signs, regardless of what they are, will be have the name of the attraction. They'll have a directional arrow that kind of guides individuals to where they need to go, and then the approximate mileage to the attraction from the location of the sign. Then if breweries, distilleries, whatnot would be eligible for the program, but what happens is if there's a generic symbol that's included in the manual, and the administration identifies that for the Department of Commerce, the sign can also include the generic symbol. So I just note what was pulled out of the bill here, marinas, for example, there's a generic symbol for marinas. So a sign, a tacked sign for a marina would have the name, the guidance arrow, the mileage, and I think it's a little boat on a trailer.
So I'm confused. Right now, breweries and distilleries can't have a sign at all?
No, they could have a sign. It just would have to be name only because there's not a generic symbol that's approved in the MVT Committee.
I understand. So they can still pay for a sign that says the name, the distance, and an arrow.
yes, any attraction that would meet the eligibility requirements in the program and thus be an eligible attraction could then have a sign. It's just whether or not they get a generic symbol on their sign.
Got it. Thank you. Delegate Morgan and then Delegate Healing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, wouldn't a winery show grapes? Isn't that a generic sign?
There actually isn't a generic symbol that's approved by the MUTCD that could be used for a winery.
So this is they're federal permitted sign images, not something that Maryland approves?
They're not, it's not something Maryland approves. It's they're images in the manual on uniform traffic control devices that kind of being co-opted for the attraction. They're attraction symbols in the MUTCD that are being used for their purpose. It's just there's nothing that could indicate a winery or a brewery or a distillery or any of the other many attractions out there that might be eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Delegate Healing?
I have two questions. I think I recognize one of those symbols as like a golf course. There's somebody,
Mm-hmm.
one of those brown signs with an image of somebody with a golf club.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that means that it's one of the things that's allowed, right?
I believe looking at the symbols, that a golf course is one of the eligible symbols. So yes, a golf course under this program would have, I believe it's a little golfer.
Okay. Well, the other question really is who decides what kind of attraction is eligible? Because we had some discussion in the committee recently about, roadside zoos and stuff like that, which we really don't want to encourage.
So I'm just trying to find the exact language. It's PDF page 2 and bill page 2. The administration here, SHA, and the department, which is defined as the Department of Commerce, would administer the program. They collaborate to administer the program and develop standards and procedures for determining the eligibility of an attraction.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a joint, yeah.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, Patrick, are we good to vote on the amendments? Are you good?
I think so.
Okay, great. On the amendments. Is there a motion?
So move.
Great, moved and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor of amendments, say hi. Say hi. Say hi.
Hi.
Thank you all for saying hi. I appreciate that. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The amendments pass on the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Great. I heard a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor of HB 1032 as amended, say hi, wave your hand. Awesome. Anybody opposed? Great. Thank you very much. We are moving quite quickly, moving well. Okay, we are going to go to HB 1199, Delegate Edelson, Mobility Link Paratransit Service Improvements. Patrick, will you walk us through this bill, please?
Sorry, didn't get my file.
I know I'm bouncing around. My bad.
No, not your fault. Okay, well, this bill is a study. It's a study on MTA. Done, what was the name of it? It's University of Maryland Transportation Institute. Got a lot of testimony on this bill. And here we go. Maryland Transportation Institute, University of Maryland. The study compare MTA's mobility link service to similar entities nationwide, and identify the service structure of ADA paratransit service and other service areas, and whether public, private contractor, or hybrid model is used. And then, for various different services under paratransit, and then analyze the costs and savings associated with the different models and performance metrics and so on. And then there you go. It's a study, an independent study of Maryland Transit paratransit services.
Got it.
And it does have a fiscal note of $449,000. We have been approved by appropriations to move the bill.
Okay, thank you. And there are no amendments, or there are amendments?
I don't know of, well, I know MTA wanted to do it along with them, whereas the sponsor wanted it to be independent. So, testimony. Kennedy Krieger asked for amendments. If you can hold on a split second.
Absolutely.
Here we go. I think as part of the larger transit equity analysis in 2045 Maryland Transportation Plan, this might be the same, similar to what the department was looking for to work with the Transportation Institute. So I think they were similar position to the department.
Okay. Delegate Guyton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was going to ask about the amendment as well. I don't think, I understand why there needs to be an independent study outside of the department. I don't think Kennedy Krieger would fall into that category because they are users and represent users of the service rather than a provider. So I would hope that we could consider that amendment. I think it's important, given how many people that they actually serve who utilize paratransit, that they be a part of the conversation. That was my first point. My second was I recall the fiscal note being astronomical at the hearing, but I do see now it looks like we're giving them 150,000. And I'm not sure, where did I just see that? Is there some reason
It's in the bill. It's in the bill. The bill for the 2026 budget bill appropriation of at least 150,000.
It's on page 3.
Okay, so we are not mandating the 150,000 or the 450,000. We're just, do we need to protect the amount of money that actually needs to be in the bill to do the work is my question. And I'm just throwing that out there.
Patrick?
I'm sorry, to do what with the money? I mean, the bill is only authorizing.
I'm sorry, Patrick, can you say that again?
The bill.
But there's discrepancy between the fiscal note of what the study is, I think, supposed to cost and what's authorizing to be in the budget, correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a disconnect because the bill is authorizing it for fiscal year 2026, which is next year. And the bill is requiring MTA to submit the report July 2025, which is the first day of fiscal year 2026.
Madam Chair, would it be possible to have work on some amendment or amendments for this bill and bring it up next time we meet?
Absolutely. If you would like to hold this bill and work with Patrick on amendments, that would be great.
Yes, thank you
And
so
it might be a
much.
good idea to contact the sponsor too, because there is a disconnect here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I actually would like to work with Delegate Guyton on this because I'm still trying very hard every chance I get. If we're going to do any amendments, that we look at finding a way to link the Washington metropolitan area and the Baltimore area with paratransit so that people can go to see doctors in Baltimore if they live in Prince George's County or Montgomery County and vice versa. We have great medical centers all over the state, and it would be a shame if people who need paratransit can't access them because they live in a different region of the state when it's really not that far a distance.
All right, sounds good.
So Delegate
Bill-
Guyton, please, let's talk together.
Okay, bill will be held until tomorrow. Thank you both very much. We will move to HB 766. This is a Calvert County local bill. This is roadside solicitation of money or donations prohibition. This is adding Calvert County. I'm sorry, Patrick, will you tell us what this bill does? My bad.
Well, you're right. It was adding Calvert County to counties where a person may not stand in a roadway, median divider, or intersection to solicit money or donations of any kind from an occupant of a vehicle. Now, I'd heard some rumblings from, committee members, chair, and everything about constitutionality of this. And I didn't see any problem with the constitutionality of this. This applies to everybody. Then I saw the letter from where it might have come from, the letter from the state's attorney's office in Calvert County, which said, is modeled on laws that currently exist. True. It is targeted only at roadside solicitations. It does not, will not impact on legitimate fundraising activities of civic and charitable organizations. That is not true.
That is a problem. Yes, it applies to everyone. They're wrong.
This bill applies to everybody.
Right.
And if you think this doesn't ban fill the boot, it does ban fill the boot.
It does ban fill the boot. Absolutely. And
If
I
you were
got,
to have an exception, that would be a constitutional problem.
yep. And because it applies to everybody, I did get an opinion from the, or a letter from the Attorney General's office that the bill is drafted is constitutional. Any questions on the bill? It applies to absolutely everyone. Yes, Delegate Addison.
You said absolutely everyone. That means children that's outside on the roadway, because we have a lot of that as well. Selling cookies and candy, does that apply to them as well?
In Calvert County, yes.
Okay, okay, so this is just that bill. How could we get onto this, Baltimore City?
Well, if you want to talk to your administration and do that, it applies to absolutely everybody. I mean, the people advocating for the cats and dogs, the firefighters with the boot, the, panhandlers, the children selling cookies, all of the flowers, everybody.
It's okay, thank you.
Sure.
We need the children selling the cookies.
Okay, okay. So on,
Local
there are
bill.
no amendments on the bill?
No amendments.
Okay, on the bill. Is there a motion?
Move the bill.
Is there a second? Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this local Calvert County bill, raise your hand or say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. HB 766 passes. Moving on to HB 366, Delegate Guyton had asked to hold this bill for to look into it a little bit more. This is Delegate Moon's bill on the warning. Patrick, would you like to tell us what this bill does, please?
Yeah, this is functionally the same bill that we had last year and we passed, I believe, right?
Yes.
I think my notes would say that. Yeah, same elements. Requires the law enforcement agency to mail a warning in place of a citation. This is school bus cameras. I apologize, jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Warning in place of a citation if it was a first violation that occurred on a road that has 4 or more lanes, traffic 2 in each way would constitute that, and the motor vehicle is traveling in the opposite direction of the school bus. And then it goes on to require SHA to consult with Montgomery County on school bus stops that have high incidence of school bus camera violations and develop a plan, including timeline for additional safety measures at those bus stops.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions on this bill? Yes, Delegate David. Dave?
This is just Montgomery County.
No,
No.
it is not.
It's statewide?
The study is just Montgomery County, the bill is
Right.
statewide, the
Yes.
statute.
Yes,
Wait.
because they tried to do it as a local bill, but because it is sent by the district court, it has to be statewide. It came in last year originally as a local Montgomery County bill. They weren't allowed to do it that way, and so it became a statewide bill.
And it's a study? I missed that.
There are two parts to it. Sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
No, you're right. There's two parts to it. There's a change to the statute to require a warning on the first violation, and then the study, which is just Montgomery County.
Can I add one thing? My brother got one of these tickets in Charles County a couple of days ago, and I thought it was so funny, odd, that the same thing happened to him.
Yeah.
What
School
does
bus
it
camera?
do? Exactly?
Remember, oh, guys,
Go ahead.
Remember the Delegate Moon problem with the school buses on a.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there other areas in the state that have the same problem, or is it kind of unique to Montgomery County? Because I totally get where Delegate Moon is coming from the pictures that he showed of where, it just doesn't, it's very counterintuitive that you would have to stop. To me, at least. But are there other areas where that's a problem? Yeah.
I think there are, and I think Delegate Moon in his presentation mentioned some, I
Okay,
think.
thank you.
If anyone has a better memory of that, please let me know or let the committee know. Delegate Stewart.
Madam Chair. I've supported this bill in the past and various iterations of it in the delegation. I'm going to support it again today because I do think, given the counterintuitive nature of these fines, that a lot of people are being swept up in them, not knowing that they're violating the law. I've been assured that this would not apply to people who have had past violations. That was one concern I had, that if someone's got 10 past violations, I don't want them to get a warning on their 11th violation just because we passed this law. But I've been assured that it's just the first time, regardless of when it's happened. And that made me feel better. I did receive the video from, I think, some of the stakeholders that showed, I think, in kind of horrific, gory detail, what happens when drivers don't take these school bus stops seriously. And so it was disturbing, and I'm going to vote green with some trepidation. And I do think this should not be the end of our work on this, because I think the reality is that, yes, drivers don't know necessarily this is the law, but I think it's also true that a lot of these school bus stops are really, really unsafe, because just because Comar says that someone has to be dropped off, the kids have to be dropped off on the same side of the street, for example, as their apartment building, what people are doing is the students are immediately going across the street to the mall or to McDonald's or whatever, and they're crossing multiple lanes of traffic. And clearly there have been a lot of near misses, and there have been crashes, and there will continue to be crashes. I do think this is a fair bill, but I think as Delegate Moon has, tried to solve this problem from a bunch of different angles, and I hope that we can continue working on this, because I think at least in Montgomery County, a lot of these stops are just clearly not safe.
Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. Patrick, will you confirm that this is just for the first violation?
Yeah, well, you bring me to something I did want to mention. Yeah, it's for the quote, a law enforcement agency shall mail a warning place and place a citation to the owner if the violation was the owner's first. Now, functionally, that would be the owner's first in the jurisdiction, because Montgomery has no idea if Prince George's has issued the same person a ticket and vice versa. And I believe Frederick has cameras, and Washington has cameras, Washington County. And I don't know if anyone else has school bus cameras, but so it is first, but practically not necessarily.
Okay, Delegate Stewart, did you have any follow-up to that?
I'm comfortable with the jurisdictional issue, just because I think for the most part, drivers are not going to be getting hit by these things in multiple jurisdictions, I hope. My concern was really that it wasn't the first violation after we passed the law, but the first violation overall, because I wanted to avoid a situation where someone was a flagrant violator, but then just because now we passed this law, they're essentially going to get one mulligan, then before they start getting the real fines again. But it doesn't sound like that's the case.
I read it as no mulligans. We're not creating mulligans.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
and
how I read it.
let's make that legislative intent clear. No mulligans.
Well, you're getting filmed, so there's your legislative intent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, any further discussion on this bill? All right, on the bill, is there a motion?
Move.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
second? Great. On the bill, Patrick, there are no amendments, correct?
No amendments.
Okay, on the bill, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
I am.
Delegate Jacobs and Delegate Guyton.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was contacted by one of my counties that asked me to oppose the bill.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Patrick, do we have the amendments, or you may not have gotten them, so we may not be able to do it on HB 750? Yes, Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I have to go to the housing and real property. It was supposed to start at 4 o'clock.
Oh, my bad. Okay. I
Thank
think we're
you.
going to be done. I don't think we have what we need on the
All
next
right,
one.
I just
so-
have to leave. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, we probably have other housing people here. If I can say quickly to Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Love, or Gretchen, if any of you get the amendments, if you could forward them to me right away, or just even the ID number. Then
Absolutely.
I can have everything ready for tomorrow.
We will do that. We will put that on the list tomorrow. Thank you all very much. I know this was a longer meeting, but I truly appreciate all of your work. We are done.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so